Now, there's an even more interesting product that comes up in nature, and that is this vector product of del cross B. And this cross product is itself a vector, and its description is a little bit more complicated. And to describe it, I have to describe the unit vectors that point in the three principal directions, so that the unit vector in the x direction I will call x hat. That's just a little vector that's in the x direction, and that grounds all of this to the total field. So this expresses unit vector having amplitude 1 in the x direction, and then this expression means that I multiply the field component x take the derivative with respect to the x coordinate, but also there will potentially be y components to this vector. And z components to this vector. These are then terms of, I forgot something. These are now terms of the first part or the first row of this matrix that describes the components and their variation in space in the three cardinal directions. But there are more terms to this. There are the components that describe how, in the x direction, there's also the b sub y dx, and along the direction of the unit vector, the b sub y dy, and finally, in the z direction, the b sub z dz. And I'm sorry if this is starting to look tedious. There would be the z components of b. Now, it's most important to understand that ordinarily processes that we deal with involve really these diagonal terms. The x term, the y term, and the z term are the principal components, and that relates to what happens for an ordinary field. However, if the field has a rotational quality to it, then you have additional components which figure very, very importantly when we come to talk about consciousness and the quantum nature of fields, because the next thing I will tell you is that this description also relates then to the wave function psi, because we're going to be taking a second derivative of that. So when I describe the wave function psi, I talk about the wave that the quantum mechanics community has always talked, namely a wave which is three-dimensional in its basic properties and is obviously evolving in time. And so I next have to compute what is the character of yet another function, and for this I have to, I'm sorry, address another blackboard.